Dr. Nathan Cole wasn't just another surgeon. He was the kind of man whose hands could calm chaos. Patients trusted him, nurses admired him, and even the senior doctors said he had a strange intuition when it came to saving lives. He could predict complications before they happened, almost like he heard the body whispering its secrets. On June 14, 2012, he performed a marathon heart surgery that lasted nearly 12 hours. When it ended successfully, the staff applauded him, exhausted but relieved. Nathan smiled faintly, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and told the night nurse, "Give me 10 minutes. I just need to breathe." Those would be his final words ever recorded. Security footage later showed him walking down the long corridor toward the staff exit. The lights flickered twice, something that would later seem insignificant, but wasn't. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the cameras froze, the image of Nathan mid-step, his head slightly turned as if someone had called his name, lingered for 17 seconds. Then, when the feed resumed, he was gone. The hall was empty. His car keys, wallet, and phone were still in his locker. The parking lot was untouched, his apartment undisturbed, and his bank account never accessed again. It was as if the man had simply stepped out of the world. The hospital conducted an internal review, hoping to find a mistake. Maybe Nathan had left without logging out. Maybe the footage was corrupted, but everything checked out. Detectives later discovered something eerie. Every digital clock in the hospital that night jumped backward by 17 seconds at 2:17 a.m. The exact duration of the camera glitch. Staff who worked that night later confessed that, during that same moment, they heard what sounded like surgical instruments clattering onto the floor in OR 6, an operating room that had been locked and unused for weeks. When security opened it hours later, they found fresh footprints leading to the center of the room, and a single bloody surgical glove resting on the table. It was Nathan's size, his fingerprints, his blood type, but no sign of him. For months after Nathan's disappearance, the Seattle Police Department treated it as a high-profile missing person case. Reporters camped outside St. Augustine Medical Center, and the story ran on every major network. People loved Nathan. He had no enemies, no dark rumors, nothing that suggested he'd just walk away from his life. But as investigators dug deeper, they started to find a subtle pattern: late-night computer logins from Nathan's hospital account days before he vanished, all accessing one specific patient file, Eleanor Price. Eleanor had been a car accident victim who, according to the records, should have died on the operating table. Yet she hadn't. She not only survived, but made an impossible recovery. Her x-rays showed something baffling: tissue regeneration that shouldn't have been biologically possible. Nathan had told one of the nurses he couldn't stop thinking about her case, that something inside her wasn't human. Detectives soon realized Eleanor Price's medical history didn't make sense. When they requested her earlier files from a previous hospital in Portland, the administrator said those records no longer existed, deleted from every system. Paper copies shredded months before Nathan even began treating her. The last recorded visit she had at St. Augustine was 3 days before Nathan vanished. And according to her nurse, Eleanor had specifically asked if Dr. Cole will be the one operating again tonight. But no operation had been scheduled. Even stranger, after that night, Eleanor Price was never seen again. Her emergency contact number led to a disconnected line, and her listed address turned out to be an abandoned house that had been empty for over a decade. By 2013, The investigation hit a dead end. Detectives had no leads, no body, no evidence of foul play, just whispers in hospital corridors and a growing sense of unease. The staff stopped talking about Nathan, but every once in a while, a new intern would bring his name up, only to be met with a quiet, "Don't." The operating room where Nathan had last been seen was eventually sealed off for maintenance, but nurses reported that the door handle was always cold to the touch, even in the summer. Some nights, janitors swore they could hear faint classical music playing inside, the same playlist Nathan used during surgeries. And when the new chief surgeon moved into Nathan's old office, he found a note taped beneath the desk, written in Nathan's handwriting. "She's not done with me yet." 5 years later, in the summer of 2017, a woman named Linda Harrow was brought into St. Augustine Medical Center after a brutal highway accident. Her injuries were severe: internal bleeding, broken ribs, and a collapsed lung. The surgical team rushed her into the operating room, led by Dr. Raymond Lyle, one of the hospital's top trauma surgeons. As they opened her chest cavity, something metallic caught the light beneath layers of damaged tissue. At first, they assumed it was shrapnel from the crash, maybe part of the car's frame. But when they pulled it out, the entire room froze. It wasn't debris. It was a hospital ID badge, perfectly sealed in a thin layer of tissue. The photo was still clear despite the years, the name tag unmistakable: Dr. Nathan Cole. Everyone in the operating room went silent. Dr. Lyle almost dropped the badge when he realized it was not corroded at all. It looked as if it had been placed there just hours before. When Linda woke up days later, she seemed disoriented and frightened, her heartbeat spiking whenever someone mentioned the surgery. During her post-op recovery, she claimed to remember something that didn't fit the timeline. A moment before the operation, while she was still unconscious under anesthesia, she said she saw someone standing beside her, wearing surgical scrubs, whispering to her softly, telling her to breathe slow. She described his voice as calm, reassuring, but unfamiliar, deep and deliberate, almost too steady. When the nurses showed her a photo of Dr. Lyle, she shook her head. But when they accidentally left Nathan Cole's old missing person flyer on the tray beside her bed, Linda went pale and whispered, "That's him. That's the man who told me not to move." The nurse swore Linda's pupils dilated as she spoke, and her voice seemed to drop into a register that wasn't her own, as the hospital tried to dismiss it as post-anesthesia confusion. Linda's condition began to deteriorate without explanation. Her heartbeat synchronized with the sound of the hospital's heart monitors, creating an eerie rhythm that technicians said didn't match any normal pulse pattern. One night, she woke screaming, saying she could feel something moving inside her chest. When nurses rushed in, her monitor flatlined for 7 seconds, then restarted on its own. Later, when they reviewed the surveillance footage from her recovery room, they noticed a dark shape reflected in the observation glass. A figure wearing scrubs from the 2010-era uniform design, the same style Dr. Nathan Cole wore before he vanished. And though the figure's face wasn't clear, every nurse who watched that footage agreed on one thing: the man in the reflection had a hospital ID hanging from his chest, faintly glinting under the fluorescent light. After Linda Harrow's surgery and the shocking discovery of Dr. Cole's ID badge, St. Augustine Medical Center turned into a media circus. The hospital board ordered an internal investigation to control the narrative. but whispers among the staff couldn't be silenced. Something about the whole thing felt off. When the IT department began pulling old security archives to confirm whether Nathan's ID had been used anywhere in the building, they stumbled upon something chilling. Corrupted surveillance files dated March 2017, recorded from operating room 6, the very same room where Nathan was last seen 5 years prior. The files shouldn't have existed. That room's cameras were disconnected years ago, and the system logs showed no reactivation. Yet, here they were, 6 video fragments, each exactly 3 minutes and 2 seconds long. Against the hospital's advice, Detective Rachel Mendez, who had worked Nathan's missing person case years earlier, demanded the footage be restored. When the first clip finally loaded, the room was dimly lit, flickering as though the power supply was unstable. Surgical instruments lay neatly arranged on a tray, gleaming under the overhead light. The timestamp read 3:02 a.m., and through the static, a figure slowly emerged, tall, in surgical scrubs, with a mask obscuring his face. His movements were oddly mechanical, as if every gesture was rehearsed. At one point, he reached for a scalpel, turned toward the empty operating table, and began performing what looked like a procedure. But there was no patient. His hands moved with expert precision, cutting and stitching the air as though working on an invisible body. The sound of a faint heart monitor could be heard in the background, steady, rhythmic, impossibly synchronized with the motion of his hands. Then the lights flickered, and the figure looked directly into the camera, head tilting slightly. The video glitched violently before going black. Detective Mendez ordered her team to review the rest of the footage, each file stranger than the last. In one, the same figure appeared standing motionless beside the table, a faint hum filling the room like machinery winding up. In another, surgical instruments began vibrating slightly on their own, sliding across the tray. The last video, however, froze everyone in the viewing room. For just a few seconds, the face of the surgeon came into focus, lifeless eyes staring through the mask, unmistakably belonging to Dr. Nathan Cole. His ID badge hung from his chest, and the name glowed faintly as if illuminated from within. The timestamp on that final recording, June 14, 2017, exactly 5 years to the day since Nathan disappeared. When the lights in the viewing room flickered at that exact moment, Detective Mendez whispered what no one wanted to say out loud. "He's still in there." A few weeks after the discovery of the mysterious footage, a coroner named Dr. Amelia Vance from Portland General received the body of an unidentified man found collapsed outside a small rural clinic. His cause of death appeared to be cardiac arrest, but during the autopsy, Amelia found something that didn't belong. A heart valve unlike any she'd ever seen. The material wasn't metal or plastic, but something organic and mechanical at the same time, pulsing faintly even outside the body, as if it still wanted to beat. On closer inspection under ultraviolet light, she noticed a pattern etched into the inner ring, a sequence of microscopic letters forming one name, M. Cole, the same name that had haunted every investigator, every nurse, and every night shift doctor for half a decade. Amelia initially believed it was a coincidence or a fabrication, but when she cross-checked medical databases, she realized the valve matched a prototype design Nathan Cole had been developing before his disappearance. A design that had never been approved, tested, or even completed. Amelia contacted Detective Mendez immediately, who drove through the night to witness the discovery firsthand. When they ran DNA tests on the tissue surrounding the valve, the results were even more disturbing. The sample matched Nathan's genetic profile, but with a twist. It wasn't identical. It was a reconstruction, as if someone had rebuilt him cell by cell, strand by strand, but made subtle changes, small mutations that didn't exist in human DNA. The tissue seemed new, as though it hadn't aged at all in the years since his disappearance. Mendez couldn't comprehend it, and neither could Amelia. They repeated the test 3 times, even sending a sample to an independent lab in Chicago. Every result came back the same. It was Nathan's DNA, but rewritten, like someone or something had used his genetic code as a blueprint to create something else. By now, rumors had spread beyond St. Augustine. Other hospitals began quietly reporting strange incidents, surgical tools misplaced, patient records altered, and unexplained incisions found on bodies during post-op reviews. Incisions that matched Dr. Cole's precise surgical style. At a hospital in Montana, a patient who survived a failed heart transplant claimed that a man in outdated scrubs had stood over him during the blackout, whispering, "You'll live now. She still needs you." When shown Nathan's photo days later, the patient's pulse spiked violently, and he started convulsing, muttering one sentence over and over, "He's fixing what she started." Investigators began to suspect that whatever Nathan had discovered inside Eleanor Price before he vanished, it hadn't just changed him, it had rebuilt him. And now, somewhere out there, that same impossible intelligence seemed to be continuing his work through him, one body at a time. Detective Mendez eventually retired, but she never stopped thinking about Nathan Cole. Every year, on the anniversary of his disappearance, she'd receive an unmarked envelope. No return address, no message, just a photo of a surgical room somewhere in America. Different hospitals, different years, but always the same thing. A shadow standing by the operating table, head tilted, mask on, and an ID badge glinting faintly under the light. The photos always arrived on June 14th at exactly 2:17 a.m. St. Augustine Medical Center finally shut down in 2020, but those who still live near it say the lights in the old OR6 sometimes flicker at night. And if you stand outside on a quiet evening, you can hear faint classical music echoing through the walls. The same playlist Dr. Cole used during surgeries. Locals claim they've seen a figure moving behind the dusty windows, his outline illuminated by surgical lamps that no longer work. The police dismissed it as urban legend, but every time someone dares to break in, they find one thing left behind on the old stainless steel table, a single, clean surgical glove, and a fresh patient chart. No one knows if Dr. Nathan Cole is dead, alive, or something in between. But the truth seems colder than either, because every few months, a hospital somewhere in the country reports a mysterious procedure, one that saves a life no doctor remembers performing. And somewhere in the silence that follows, a familiar voice always whispers to the recovering patient, calm and steady as ever, "This won't hurt much this time."
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.